Well, happy Detransition Awareness Day. This is March 12th, 2025. 2025. This has been going on from what I guess is 2017. And I'm glad there's groups and organizations out there you can Google that will help you detransition if you decide to do so. I started my journey about almost 2 years ago on my detransition. I had been transgender since 2014 when I decided to make that decision. And for me, it was a long, lengthy process decision. I didn't want to be one of those people that jump back and forth. I know it's a very common fad, especially among younger people today, where they don't know who they are, what they are. They're this thing one day, they're that thing one day, and it's just kind of unsettling and unnerving to me. So, anyways, I was wholeheartedly believed in my heart that I was a woman inside. And it goes way back to my childhood where I was abused by my mother and my father and other caretakers, and it just caused a lot of confusion in me. My mother was abused also as a young child, so she transferred all that hatred and anger towards men on me. And my dad was an absent father, not there physically, emotionally, mentally for me. He had cognitive disorders, paranoid schizophrenia, uh, things like that. And so, yeah, it was a very tumultuous and childhood that I had. And it caused a lot of problems. It caused me to question who I was. And so, over time, over the years, when I was a teenager, I heard about transgenderism. And I decided, well, when I turned 18, I was going to change. And that never happened. I lived life trying to suppress all these feelings. And then, so finally, back in 2014, I decided to finally make that decision to transition. It was more of a social transition. Um, After a while, I did take and find hormonal supplements, natural supplements. I didn't believe in drugs. I still don't. I try to avoid them at all costs if I can. And so it did transition my body. My breasts grew larger. I had about a C cup breast. My testosterone levels were likely way down. And I didn't do too much damage, but just enough. And I did look quite feminine. I was very passable for the most part. So then, like I said, about 2 years ago, I really started questioning all of this and started going through, is this what I really want to do? This is how I want to live the rest of my life. I had a great experience. Women and men are totally different, as most of you know, or are willing to admit. We're not the same. We think different, we act different, we talk different, we relate to each other differently, depending on who we are and what our roles in society are. So with all of that, it was a great experience where I did learn a lot about women, a lot of things I didn't know, a lot of things that men would never realize or appreciate. And so for that, I am thankful of and grateful for it. But as I was going through all this and really thinking about it, I mean, I had my Christian faith, my Christian belief. I've been a Christian all my adult life. And so I prayed many times. I asked God, and I just felt in my heart that it was okay and acceptable. So I think maybe He allowed me to do that for that reason, to discover what women really were like and what they were about, and get a proper view and perspective on how women are and how they think and react and view society and the world. So, and that also helped with the pornography and all that. So looking at women not as sex objects, but more as people. So I started questioning all these things. And so it was a back and forth struggle. And I just felt God was kind of leading me, okay, it's time, you've had enough. And I was addicted to it. I was, addicted to the cross dressing. I enjoyed it, cross dress as much as I could, went out in public. And the last time I was out in public was just just after Thanksgiving, a couple years, or yeah, during after that. And I went to a place, I won't just kind of vaguely describe what it was, but it was just a place where I just saw humanity at its worst. And it was just a lot of people there that were just lost and hurting and dying inside, had a lot of issues, a lot of emotional trauma and things, and they were trying to escape all of that by what they were doing there. And it was just one of those things that really broke my heart and grieved my heart. And just God just opened my eyes to a new reality. I knew it existed. I knew that stuff was out there, but to see it and experience it personally It was nothing really bad or serious, but it was just enough where I saw the humanity in people. And on my way home from that, it was like God was really speaking to me. It's like, okay, it's time for you to make a decision. Which way are you going to go in your life? And with that, that was my decision time. Then I was like, okay, it's time for me to change. It's time for me to really start looking at things in my life in a different light. And so after that, I just started detransition. I cut my hair short. I had long hair, and then just started to slowly get rid of my clothes. And finally, one day, I made the decision. About 6 months later, all right, let's just get rid of everything. Keep all the masculine-looking clothes. I don't believe clothing has a gender. I think it's what society assigns to it. Women wear this, men wear this because that's what the society, your culture that you live in, dictate that you wear to distinguish the difference between men and women. Because you can look at, okay, there are skirts, there are kilts, there are robes. They all look like dresses. They all look like women's clothes, but men wear them in some societies and some cultures. But yet that's acceptable. It's like, okay, well, it's the same thing. No, it's not. Well, it's one of those issues that there's a lot of debate on, and so therefore I don't believe clothing has a gender other than what society and the fashion industry assigns to it. So that being aside, I was like, okay, well, culture dictates this is how I look, this is how I act, so I'll try to get along with culture. I still have my own unique differences and preferences. I do dress kind of differently, but that's neither here nor there, and I'm mostly mechanic, mostly doing a lot of work, so I'm just dressed in work clothes most of the time anyways, and when I go out, I just put a little bit of a flair on, and I get some looks, and I was like, well, okay, I guess, he's just being one of those weird guys. So that was that. It was just a long time, and then through all that, too, I was going through Celebrate Recovery, and that, I believe, had a big impact on my decision too to change, because I was really starting to dig into my past, who I was, working through all the 12 steps. Celebrate Recovery, for those who don't know, is something similar to all of your traditional 12-step programs like AA, NA, all the other anonymous groups out there. And they use the 12 steps, 12 traditions, but it's the Christian version of that. We use the 8 Beatitudes. And it's a Christ-centered focus where your higher power is not whatever you decide it is. It's actually God. It's actually Jesus Christ, which I believe is the only true higher power. And it was actually through when I went to Alateen many years ago, because my mom was an alcoholic and others were alcoholics in my family, to deal and cope with all of that. It did lead me down that path to accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior as an adult. So with all of that going on, I was like, okay, it's time to make some serious changes. And that's when I really looked at my past, everything going on in my life. And I realized all these things. And for whatever reason, a lot of things were blocked out of my mind. They're still blocked out of my mind about what happened in my past. But God was bringing glimpses of my past back into my memory, and realizing all the horrible abuses and everything I'd suffered. And it was working through a forgiveness issue. It's something that I've done before. Last time I worked through this, I had really bad eczema, and that was cleared up as a result of me working through it. I believe toxic emotions cause all kinds of problems in our body. It causes mental illness, and most of our problems in our human existence can be traced back to emotional sources, and we need to forgive. We need to work through all those things in order to receive a complete healing in our body. And when we have those toxic emotions, it creates all kinds of stress and disorders. There's plenty of information out there, and I'm living proof of that, and I totally believe that that's what the causes were. So working through the detransition, like I said, I got rid of my clothes, and I really started digging deep into it. And now I'm comfortable with being a man. I stopped taking the supplements, obviously, and I started taking testosterone boosting supplements. I was checked a few months ago with my testosterone levels. Excuse me. And those were in a normal range. And I was thankful for that. And I had some other minor health issues, which I'll probably talk about in other videos, where my blood counts were all weird. And I pretty much worked on fixing that too. So and right now I am very comfortable with being a man. I am comfortable with who I am. This is the way God created me. He gave me this body for a reason. I'm thankful for the body He gave me. And I'm thankful for my role in society. And I just need to learn to accept who I am and what He has created me to be in Christ. I have aspirations, as I mentioned in other videos, to be a pastor, and I'm working diligently to pursue that, to wrap up everything I've got going on in life, and working on that on the side. And God is restoring me. He's restoring that in me. I tried pastoring churches before, and they were dismal failures and taken over by others or disbanded. And so I believe now is the time. I believe I'm at a point in my life where now is the time for me to move on and to fully detransition. But I'm here to help others. I'm here with this channel. I believe part of the reason for this channel, the Second Chances Ministries, is to help others through life and help them on their journey. I've talked to many people privately, and they have these same emotions, these same feelings. I believe I was in the wrong body. Women especially. And a lot of that goes back to being abused, especially as a younger child, as a young girl. They felt so hopeless and so helpless. They're like, well, if I was a boy or if I was a guy, none of this would have happened to me. I don't see any of them. Well, it's just us women or us girls that are getting abused. And that's really tragic and sad. So I believe that's a lot of reasons for lesbianism and transgenderism on the female side. And men is just being abused and put down. Another thing, too, I had mentioned before is I have an INFJ personality, according to the Myers-Briggs test. And just briefly, that means I'm an introvert. N is I'm an intuitive, hard word to say there. And F is feeling, which I'm more feeling than thinking as a guy, and that's really weird. And I'm judgmental, not in a critical aspect, but where I can see through people's BS and see through their lives pretty readily. And so it's a very unique personality. There's only 2% of the population that have my type of personality. And 3/4 of us are actually women. So it's a feminine, very rare type of personality. So there's basically 1 in 200 men that have this type of personality out there. And so with that too, I didn't fit into society. And doing a little bit of research, there's really not a whole lot out there, just a lot of anecdotal evidence, but a lot of INFJs and some ENFJs, which is the extroverted side of my personality, they are transgenders, and it's just like, wow, that's just totally makes sense. It's kind of interesting. So I don't know if there's cause effect there, but it's just we're ostracized. People don't know how to handle us, and women look much better, more caring, more understanding to us. And it's like, wow, that's who I believe I am on the inside because that's who I feel I am. But I realized, I can use those aspects, especially in the pastoral ministry. I know how women think, I know how women feel, I know how they react and relate to society. So I can minister to women, and I can minister to couples, and I can minister to men. I was never really close in the in crowd with men or boys growing up throughout my life. I was always ostracized. So I know how they think, I know how they respond, being part of their club, part of their group, but I just feel like an outsider. So I have the best of both worlds, really, as I look at it. So I can minister to a lot of people, I can relate to a lot of people, and I believe that's what this world needs, is people out there who truly and genuinely caring and understanding about others and are out there willing to help others. And that's my true heart, my true desire. So that's the reason why I started this channel, and I hope we'll let it evolve. And I hope it does help millions of people eventually out throughout the world. If it does, great. And if it doesn't, well, I'm doing what I believe that the Lord is telling me to do right now at this point in my life. And it's just a stepping stone to even greater things. So with that, I will close. I know I'm kind of rambling on here, but I just ask that you would like, subscribe if you have any comments, questions. Eventually, I'd like to have a helps ministry. You can leave comments below, please. And, maybe we'll get together to touch and contact with each other. So with that, I will sign off here. Shalom, and may the Lord be with you.